The mountain was silent now, too silent. The kind of silence that follows catastrophe, when nature holds its breath and waits to see who survived. Snow stretched endlessly in every direction, a pristine white blanket that concealed the violence beneath. And somewhere under that cold, crushing weight, time was running out. At the edge of the debris field, a German shepherd named Ranger stood motionless. His amber eyes locked onto a single point in the snow. His breath formed small clouds in the freezing air, but he didn't move, didn't bark, didn't scratch. He just stood there, statue still, as if listening to something no human ear could detect. His handler, Marcus Reeves, called out to him. Once, twice, nothing. The rest of the search and rescue team trudged past, their probes sinking into the snow, their voices tight with urgency, but Ranger refused to budge. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. In 8 years of working together, Ranger had never frozen like this, never ignored a command. Something was wrong, or maybe something was right. Then Marcus saw it, the faintest twitch in Ranger's ear, the slight tension in his haunches, and he knew. But what lay beneath that snow wasn't just a body, it was a heartbeat, and it would change everything. 2 days before the avalanche, the mountain had been alive with sound. The summit of Mount Keller stood proud against the Wyoming sky, its jagged peaks dusted with early season snow. The small ski resort at its base hummed with activity, families laughing, instructors shouting directions, lift cables whirring overhead. It was the kind of place where people came to escape the world below, to breathe clean air and feel weightless for a few precious hours. Marcus Reeves wasn't there for leisure. He was there to work. As a member of the Summit Ridge Search and Rescue Unit, he spent his winters preparing for the worst. Avalanches were rare in this region, but not impossible. And when they happened, seconds mattered. He stood outside the rescue station, a weathered wooden building tucked into the tree line, checking his gear. His orange parka was worn at the elbows. His gloves were patched with duct tape, but his equipment was spotless. Probe, shovel, beacon, radio. Everything in its place, everything ready. Beside him, Ranger sat in the snow, his dark eyes scanning the horizon. His coat was thick and glossy, his posture alert. He wore a red vest with reflective strips and the words "Search and Rescue" stitched across the back. To most people, he was just a dog. To Marcus, he was a partner, a brother, a lifeline. Ranger had been with Marcus since he was a pup, trained from 8 weeks old to locate victims buried in snow, rubble, or collapsed structures. He could detect the scent of a human being buried 15 feet deep. He could work in temperatures that would kill most animals, and he never, ever gave up. Marcus had chosen Ranger from a litter of 12. The breeder, an old Norwegian woman named Astrid, had watched Marcus kneel in the straw surrounded by tumbling puppies. Most of them had bounded over to him immediately, climbing on his legs, nipping at his fingers. But one puppy had hung back, watching with intelligent eyes. "That one," Astrid had said, pointing to the quiet observer. "He thinks before he acts. That's what you need in the mountains." She'd been right. From the beginning, Ranger had shown an uncanny ability to assess situations, to remain calm under pressure, to focus when chaos erupted around him. During his training, while other dogs had been distracted by sounds, smells, and movement, Ranger had stayed locked onto his task with laser precision. Marcus scratched behind Ranger's ears now, feeling the familiar texture of his fur, the warmth of his body. "Good boy," he murmured. "Let's hope we don't need you today." But hope, Marcus had learned, was a fragile thing in the mountains. The weather forecast had been optimistic: clear skies, mild winds, perfect conditions for late-season skiing. But by mid-afternoon, the clouds began to roll in, thick, gray, and low. The temperature dropped sharply. The wind picked up, howling through the pines like a warning. Marcus had seen this pattern before. He'd grown up in these mountains, spent 34 years learning their moods, their rhythms, their dangers. His father had been a ranger, his grandfather before that. The mountains were in his blood, and right now his blood was telling him something was wrong. He radioed the resort manager. "You seeing this?" A crackle of static, then a voice, tight with concern. "Yeah, we are closing the upper lifts, pulling everyone down." Good call, but not everyone listened. High on the mountain, a group of backcountry skiers had ventured beyond the marked trails. 5 people, 3 men, 2 women, all experienced, all confident in their abilities. They'd been chasing fresh powder, carving turns through untouched snow, laughing and shouting as they descended into a narrow valley. Leading the group was David Green, a 53-year-old ski instructor who'd been navigating these mountains for 30 years. Behind him came Lisa Thornton, a physician from Denver, and her partner Thomas Hayes, a structural engineer. The last two were younger, college students from Boulder named Jake Martinez and Sarah Chen, both strong skiers eager to prove themselves in the backcountry. They'd checked the avalanche forecast that morning. Low risk, nothing to worry about. They'd carried beacons, shovels, probes, all the safety equipment. They'd done everything right, except they'd ignored the changing weather, and they'd ventured into a zone where the snowpack had been weakened by days of temperature fluctuations, freezing at night, softening during the day, creating layers of instability invisible to the naked eye. None of them noticed the faint rumble beneath their skis. None of them saw the hairline fracture spreading across the snowpack above them, spiderwebbing across 200 yards of pristine white surface. And when the mountain finally let go, it did so without mercy. The sound came first, a deep, thunderous roar that seemed to rise from the earth itself. Then the ground shifted. David looked up just in time to see the wall of snow bearing down on them, moving faster than anything he'd ever witnessed. 50 miles per hour, a tsunami of white. He screamed a warning, but the words were swallowed by the roar. He tried to ski out of the path, angling toward the trees, but the snow caught him, lifted him, tumbled him like a leaf in a hurricane. The world became a chaos of white and gray and terrifying, suffocating pressure. Lisa's last thought before the snow consumed her was of her 8-year-old daughter waiting at home. Thomas tried to deploy his airbag pack, but never got his hand to the ripcord. Jake and Sarah, skiing side by side, were separated in an instant, pulled in different directions by the churning mass. And in the center of the chaos, buried within layers of clothing and protective gear, was something else. A black case strapped to David's back. Inside it, carefully packed and insulated, were vials of medication, experimental, rare, desperately needed. For a boy named Ethan Cole, currently lying in a hospital bed 200 miles away. Watching the minutes tick by as his body fought a battle it was slowly losing. The avalanche ran its course in 90 seconds. When it stopped, the silence returned. Absolute, overwhelming. 5 people were buried beneath tons of compacted snow, and the clock was already counting down their survival time. 15 minutes, maybe 30 if they were lucky. After that, the cold would claim them, or the pressure, or the suffocation. The mountain didn't care. It simply settled, adjusted its weight, and waited. The first call came in at 4:47 p.m., a garbled voice on the emergency radio, half drowned in static and wind. Avalanche, North Ridge, 5 people, can't find... Then silence. Marcus was already moving. He grabbed his pack, clipped his beacon to his chest, and whistled sharply. Ranger was at his side in an instant, eyes bright, body coiled with energy. The rest of the team scrambled into action, pulling on gear, loading supplies into the tracked rescue vehicle, shouting coordinates to each other. The call had come from another backcountry skier who'd witnessed the avalanche from a safe distance. He'd seen the 5 skiers enter the valley, watched the snow give way, seen them disappear. Then he'd skied down as fast as he could to call for help. Marcus's team consisted of 6 members besides himself. Rachel Kim, a paramedic with ice climbing experience. Brothers Owen and Liam McAllister, both mountaineers who'd summited peaks on 3 continents. Jennifer Vasquez, a wilderness guide with 15 years in search and rescue. Marcus's deputy, a quiet man named Cole Harrison, who'd pulled more people from avalanches than anyone else in the state. And finally, Tyler Brooks, the youngest member, just 24, but with instincts that reminded Marcus of himself at that age. They loaded into the vehicle, a red snowcat with reinforced tracks and room for equipment and injured victims. The engine roared to life. Marcus climbed into the front passenger seat, Ranger at his feet, and they began the brutal climb up the mountain. The ride up was a test of endurance. The vehicle lurched over uneven terrain, its treads grinding against rock and ice. Snow pelted the windshield in thick sheets. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The wind screamed outside, battering the snowcat, threatening to push them off course. Marcus sat in silence, one hand gripping the overhead bar, the other resting on Ranger's head. He was mentally reviewing everything they'd need: the search patterns, the medical protocols, the extraction procedures. Every second would matter. Every decision could mean life or death. Beside him, Cole drove with steady hands, his face set in concentration. Rachel sat behind them, checking the medical supplies, mentally preparing for what they might find. The others were silent, each lost in their own thoughts, their own preparations. They'd all been through this before. They'd pulled bodies from the snow. They'd watched people die despite their best efforts. They'd carried the weight of those losses for days, weeks, sometimes years. But they kept coming back, because sometimes, not always, but sometimes, they won. They found someone alive. They brought them home, and those moments made everything else worthwhile. When they reached the site, the devastation took Marcus's breath away. The avalanche had carved a path half a mile long and 200 yards wide, tearing through trees like they were twigs. Pines that had stood for a century were snapped in half, their trunks shattered, their branches scattered across the snow like broken bones. The snow itself was dense and heavy, compacted by the force of its own momentum into a solid mass that would be nearly impossible to dig through, and somewhere beneath it, 5 people were buried alive. The team deployed immediately. They switched their beacons to search mode, spreading out across the debris field in a coordinated pattern. The devices beeped steadily, searching for the signals from the victims' beacons. Marcus released Ranger with a single command: search. The dog shot forward, nose low, weaving back and forth across the debris field. His movements were methodical, precise. Every few seconds he paused, sniffed, then moved on. His training took over completely. This was what he lived for, what every cell in his body had been prepared to do. Marcus watched him closely, reading every twitch, every hesitation. After 8 years together, he could interpret Ranger's body language better than most people could read written words. The angle of his ears, the tension in his shoulders, the speed of his tail wag, each told a story. The team worked in grim silence, their breaths coming hard and fast in the thin mountain air. The cold was biting through their layers, numbing fingers, stinging faces. The light was fading fast. They had maybe 90 minutes before darkness fell completely. Rachel's beacon caught the first signal. "I've got something. Bearing 270, 30 meters." The team converged, probes in hand. They formed a line, driving the long metal rods into the snow at regular intervals, searching for resistance. Third probe from the left, solid contact. "Here," Owen shouted. The shoveling began, fast, efficient, practiced. They worked in rotation, 2 digging while the others rested, then switching every few minutes to maintain speed without burning out. The snow flew in steady streams, a rhythm born of training and experience. Marcus stood back, scanning the field, trusting his team while keeping an eye on the bigger picture. They'd found one, 4 more to go, and the clock was ticking. Minutes passed, then an hour. The light continued to fade. The cold deepened. Around him, the team worked with desperate focus, their breaths visible in the frigid air, their movements sharp with urgency. Then Ranger stopped. Not the usual alert. No barking, no digging. Just a sudden, complete stillness. He stood in the center of the debris field, head cocked, ears forward. His body was tense, but he didn't move, didn't make a sound. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. He'd seen Ranger alert hundreds of times. This was different. The dog wasn't excited or eager. He was focused in a way Marcus had never seen before, almost reverent. Marcus jogged over, his boots crunching in the snow. "What is it, Ranger? What did you find?" The dog didn't respond, didn't look up. His eyes were fixed on the snow beneath him, unblinking, unwavering. Marcus knelt down, pressing his ear to the snow. At first he heard nothing, just the wind howling across the debris field, just the distant shouts of his team, just his own heartbeat pounding in his ears, loud and insistent. Then, faint, impossibly faint, he heard it, a sound, not a voice, not a cry for help, something softer, something rhythmic, something that didn't belong to the wind or the mountain or the settling snow. Thump, 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 a heartbeat. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. He pressed his ear closer, held his breath, listened with every fiber of his being. There it was again, weak but steady, the unmistakable rhythm of life fighting against the cold and the pressure and the suffocating darkness. He looked up at Ranger, whose gaze hadn't wavered. The dog's eyes met his, and in that moment, Marcus understood. Ranger wasn't just alerting to a victim. He was telling Marcus something more, something urgent, something that went beyond protocol and training. This one mattered. They all mattered, of course. Every life was precious. But something about this particular heartbeat, this particular victim, had triggered something deeper in Ranger, some instinct that transcended training. Marcus keyed his radio, his voice tight with controlled urgency. "I've got something. Need shovels here now." The team converged on his position. Cole, Owen, Liam, Jennifer, all grabbing shovels, forming a circle around the spot where Ranger stood. Rachel approached with the medical kit, ready for anything, but as they began to dig, as the shovels bit into the compacted snow, Marcus felt a strange unease settle over him. Ranger wasn't acting like he usually did after a find. There was no excitement, no tail wagging, no sense of accomplishment, just that eerie, watchful stillness. The dog stood at the edge of the excavation, motionless, his eyes locked on the deepening hole, watching, waiting, as if he knew that what they were about to uncover would change everything. And deep in his gut, where instinct lived and logic couldn't reach, Marcus knew Ranger was right. This rescue was going to be different. The digging began in earnest. 4 team members, shovels biting into the snow, working in rotation to avoid exhaustion. The snow was heavy, compressed by the weight of the avalanche, and each shovelful required significant effort. Sweat formed despite the cold. Breath came in ragged gasps, but they didn't slow down. Marcus stayed close to Ranger, one hand on the dog's back, feeling the tension in his muscles. The dog hadn't moved since his alert. He stood like a sentinel, eyes fixed on the excavation site, body rigid with concentration. "How deep you think?" Cole asked, pausing to catch his breath. Marcus shook his head. "Hard to say, could be 5 feet, could be 15. After 20 minutes they hit resistance. Not rock, not ice. Something softer. Fabric." Marcus dropped to his knees, brushing snow away with his gloved hands. A patch of bright blue emerged, a jacket sleeve, then a shoulder, then a neck. "We've got someone," he shouted. The team redoubled their efforts. Within minutes, they'd uncovered the victim's upper body. A woman, mid-30s, face pale as the snow around her. Her eyes were closed, her lips were blue. Frost had formed on her eyelashes and in her hair. She looked dead, but Marcus had learned never to trust appearances in the mountains. He pulled off his glove, pressed 2 fingers to her neck, searching for a pulse. His own heart hammered as he waited, counted seconds, focused everything on that tiny patch of skin beneath his fingertips. There, weak, thread, barely perceptible, but there. "She's alive, get the stretcher. Rachel, I need you." Rachel moved with practiced efficiency, sliding down into the hole beside the woman. She checked pupils, airways, breathing. Severe hypothermia, weak pulse, maybe 40 beats per minute, but she's breathing on her own. We need to get her warm now. They worked as a unit, carefully extracting the woman from her snow prison, wrapping her in thermal blankets, securing her to the rescue sled. Rachel started an IV line, pushing warm fluids. Tyler radioed down the mountain for medical evacuation. Within 15 minutes, they had her loaded into the snowcat. 2 team members would take her down while the rest continued searching. 1 saved, 4 more to go. But Ranger hadn't moved. He was still standing in the same spot, staring down at the snow. His body was rigid, his breathing shallow. Marcus felt his unease deepen. "Ranger, come." The dog didn't respond. Marcus walked over, placed both hands on Ranger's head, forced the dog to look at him. "What is it, boy? What's wrong?" Ranger's ear twitched. Then, slowly, he lowered his head and sniffed the snow where they'd found the woman. Once, twice. His nose traced a pattern, left, then right, then center. And then he did something Marcus had never seen him do before. He whimpered. Not a bark, not a howl. A soft, almost mournful sound that sent a shiver down Marcus's spine. It was the sound of a dog who'd found something he didn't understand, something that troubled him on an instinctual level. "There's something else down there," Marcus said aloud, though he wasn't sure who he was talking to. Maybe himself, maybe the mountain, maybe Ranger. He grabbed a shovel and began digging again. The snow was even more compacted here, layered and dense. His shoulders burned with effort. His lungs ached in the thin air. But he kept going, driven by instinct and the unwavering certainty that Ranger was never wrong. Cole joined him, then Liam. The 3 of them dug in silence, shovels moving in rhythm, creating a new hole adjacent to where they'd found the woman. 5 minutes later, Marcus's shovel hit something solid. He knelt down, brushing away snow with his hands, and then he saw it. A hand, small, pale, fingers curled inward, as if grasping for something that wasn't there. Marcus's heart stopped. His breath caught. Time seemed to freeze as he stared at that tiny hand, so fragile, so impossibly small. "Child," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Then louder, "We've got a child here." The word galvanized the team. Jennifer and Owen rushed over, helping to excavate around the small form. They worked with frantic care, desperate to be fast, but terrified of causing more harm. The body emerged slowly, an arm, a shoulder, a face, a boy, no more than 7 or 8 years old. His skin was waxy, almost translucent. His lips were grey, his eyes were closed, his expression peaceful as if he were merely sleeping. Marcus uncovered the boy's chest, pressed his fingers to the small neck, searching desperately for a pulse. Nothing. He tried again, adjusting his position, pressing harder. Nothing. "No," Marcus whispered. "No, no, no." He looked up at Ranger, whose eyes were still locked on the boy. The dog hadn't moved, hadn't made a sound. He just stood there watching with an intensity that bordered on painful. And then Marcus heard it again. Thump, thump. Faint. Impossibly faint. But there. He pressed his ear to the boy's chest, blocking out every other sound. The wind, the voices, his own racing heart. And yes, there it was. A heartbeat. Slow, irregular, more like a flutter than a proper rhythm, but real. "He's alive!" Marcus shouted. "He's alive! I need a medic here now." Rachel was already sliding back into the hole, medical kit in hand. She worked with controlled urgency, checking airways, starting oxygen, wrapping the boy in thermal blankets. "Body temperature is critical. He's barely hanging on. We need to get him off this mountain immediately." They lifted him carefully, treating his body like fragile glass. Jennifer radioed for another evacuation. Tyler was already preparing the second sled. As they worked, Marcus noticed something clutched in the boy's hand, a small plastic bracelet, the kind hospitals give patients. He carefully pried the boy's fingers open, removed the bracelet, read the information printed on it. Ethan Cole, age 7, diagnosis, all. Contact, Memorial Hospital, Denver, all. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Marcus felt his chest tighten. This boy wasn't just fighting hypothermia, he was fighting cancer. His immune system was already compromised. His body was already weak. The odds of him surviving this were astronomical, but he was alive. Against every statistical probability, buried under tons of snow in sub-zero temperatures, this fragile child was alive, and Marcus would be damned if he was going to let him die now. Within minutes, they had Ethan secured and ready for transport. Rachel would accompany him down the mountain, monitoring his vitals every second of the descent. The helicopter was already en route from the nearest hospital. As they loaded him into the snowcat, Marcus looked back at Ranger. The dog was finally moving again, but slowly, deliberately. He approached the spot where they'd found Ethan, sniffed the ground once more, then sat down. And that's when Marcus noticed it. The snow where Ethan had been buried was stained, not with blood, with something else. A faint discoloration, as if something had leaked from his clothes. Marcus knelt down, examined it more closely. Chemical smell, sharp, medicinal. His mind raced. Ethan had leukemia. He would have been on medication, strong medication. Chemotherapy, probably. And if he'd been buried with his medication, if the vials had broken, the chemicals would have seeped into the snow around him. That's what Ranger had smelled, not just the boy. The medication. The chemicals that were foreign, that didn't belong on a mountain. That triggered something in the dog's highly trained nose. But why had Ranger alerted so urgently? Why the unusual behavior? Marcus stood up, looked around the excavation site. Something wasn't adding up. The woman they'd found first, she'd been wearing a backpack, a large one, but it wasn't on her body anymore. It had been torn away by the force of the avalanche, which meant it was still buried somewhere nearby. Marcus turned to Ranger. "Search." But the dog was already moving. Not in wide sweeps this time, in a tight circle around the excavation site, nose to the ground, sniffing, searching, and then he stopped again, 10 feet from where they'd found Ethan. Same alert, same rigid stance, but this time he barked, once, sharp, insistent. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. He grabbed his probe, extended it to its full length, and drove it into the snow. It sank easily at first, then hit resistance. Solid, rectangular, not a body, something else. "I've got something," he called out. Not sure what. Cole and Liam were already digging. The snow flew as they worked, carving out a new hole. Within 10 minutes, they'd uncovered it. A case, black, heavy-duty, sealed with industrial latches and a combination lock. Marcus knelt beside it, studying it carefully. The case was intact, undamaged despite being buried in an avalanche. Professional grade, expensive. The kind of thing you use to transport something valuable, something irreplaceable. He looked at the combination lock. 3 digits. He thought for a moment, then tried the most obvious combination, 000. It didn't open. He tried 123, nothing. Then, on impulse, he tried 707, Ethan's age and initial. The lock clicked. The case opened. Inside, nestled in custom foam padding, were rows of glass vials, each one carefully labeled, each one filled with a clear liquid. Marcus recognized some of the names from his basic medical training: immunosuppressants, anti-nausea medication, pain management drugs. But the largest vials, the ones in the center of the case, were labeled with something else, a drug name he didn't recognize, and beneath it, handwritten in careful letters, EC, experimental therapy, do not freeze. Marcus's breath caught. He looked up at his team, then down at the case, then back toward the snowcat where Ethan was being prepared for transport. This wasn't just a hiking trip gone wrong. This was something else entirely. These people had been transporting medication, life-saving medication, for Ethan, and when the avalanche hit, they'd tried to protect it, had tried to bury it in a way that would keep it safe, keep it from being crushed or damaged, but they hadn't survived to dig it back up. Ranger hadn't just found a boy buried in the snow. He'd found the one thing that could save that boy's life. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He looked at Ranger, who was sitting calmly now, tail wagging slowly. "You incredible, brilliant boy," Marcus whispered. But there was no time to celebrate. 2 people were still buried somewhere in this debris field, and daylight was almost gone. "Cole, take this case down with Ethan. Make sure the hospital gets it. Tell them it's his medication. Experimental therapy. They'll know what to do with it." Cole nodded, carefully lifting the case. "What about the others?" "We keep searching. We don't stop until we find them all." The team nodded. Exhaustion was written on every face, but no one complained. No one suggested calling it off for the night. They had a job to do, and they would see it through. Night fell over Mount Keller like a heavy curtain. The temperature, already brutal, plummeted further. 20 degrees, then 15, then 10. The wind picked up, howling across the debris field, driving snow horizontally, reducing visibility to mere feet. The team set up portable floodlights, their harsh white beams cutting through the darkness, creating an eerie, otherworldly landscape of light and shadow. The generators hummed steadily, a mechanical heartbeat in the wilderness. Marcus and his team had been searching for 6 hours. They were running on adrenaline and sheer willpower. Fingers were numb despite heavy gloves. Faces were raw from wind exposure. Every movement required conscious effort. Every breath burned in the frozen air. But they couldn't stop. Not yet. Ranger was tiring. Marcus could see it in the way he moved. Slower, heavier, his breaths coming in visible clouds that hung in the frigid air. His paws were probably raw from the snow and ice. His muscles would be aching. But the dog refused to quit. He kept circling, kept sniffing, kept searching, just like Marcus had trained him. Just like every instinct in his body commanded him. They'd found the woman first, Sarah Chen, the college student from Boulder. She'd been buried shallow, protected by a pocket of air created by fallen trees. Alive, conscious even, though severely hypothermic. She'd cried when they pulled her out, asking about the others, about Jake, her skiing partner. They'd sent her down the mountain with Owen, who would return as soon as possible. 3 saved, 2 still missing. Marcus stood at the edge of the debris field, scanning the snow with tired eyes. The avalanche had covered such a massive area. They'd probed hundreds of spots, dug dozens of holes. Every minute that passed reduced the chances of finding the remaining victims alive. The statistics were grim. After 30 minutes buried in snow, survival rates dropped dramatically. After 2 hours, they dropped again. After 6 hours, recovery became more likely than rescue. But Marcus had learned over the years that statistics were just numbers. They didn't account for air pockets, for protective gear, for the sheer will to survive that some people possessed. So they kept searching. Jennifer's beacon caught a signal near the tree line. The team converged, probes sinking into the snow in methodical patterns. They found resistance quickly, a body, deep but detectable. The digging was harder now. Everyone was exhausted. The cold was seeping into their bones, slowing their movements, making every shovelful feel like moving concrete. But they kept going, driven by the knowledge that someone was down there, waiting. 20 minutes later, they uncovered a woman's body. Lisa Thornton, the physician from Denver. Her eyes were closed, her skin was pale, almost blue. Marcus checked for a pulse, but he already knew. She was gone. Had been for hours, probably. The cold had claimed her, shutting down her body system by system until nothing remained but this fragile shell. Marcus sat back on his heels, his chest heaving. He closed his eyes, let himself feel the weight of it, the failure, the loss, the terrible knowledge that they'd been too slow. Jennifer placed a hand on his shoulder, said nothing. What was there to say? They wrapped Lisa's body carefully, respectfully, marked the location. They would come back for her in the morning when they had more light, more help. One more to find. Thomas Hayes, Lisa's partner, the structural engineer who'd probably spent his last moments trying to protect the woman he loved. Marcus stood up, wiped his face with a numb hand. We keep going. One more. We find him. But even as he spoke, he could see the doubt in his team's eyes. They'd been out here for 7 hours in extreme conditions. Hypothermia was a real risk now, even for them. If they pushed much longer, they'd be putting themselves in danger. Cole approached, his voice low. Marcus, we need to think about pulling back, coming back at first light. 1 more hour, Marcus said. Give me 1 more hour. Cole looked like he wanted to argue, but he just nodded. 1 hour. Ranger was moving again, but slowly. Too slowly. Marcus could see the exhaustion in every step. The dog's training was keeping him going, but his body was reaching its limits. Ranger, come here, boy. The dog approached, and Marcus knelt down. He pulled off his glove, ran his hand through Ranger's thick fur, checking for signs of frostbite or injury. The dog's paws were cold, but intact. His body temperature was okay, but his eyes showed the strain. Last sweep, Marcus said softly. 1 more sweep, then we rest. Can you do that for me? Ranger's tail wagged once. Then he turned and headed back toward the debris field. They spread out in a line, one final, systematic sweep of the area. Beacons active, probes ready. Eyes scanning the snow for any sign, any clue. The minutes ticked by. 30, 40, 45. And then, near the far edge of the debris field, almost at the tree line, Ranger stopped. No dramatic alert this time, just a quiet, definitive halt. He looked back at Marcus and their eyes met across the distance. Marcus ran, as fast as his exhausted legs would carry him, boots pounding through the snow, breath tearing at his throat. When he reached Ranger, the dog was scratching at the snow, gently, almost tentatively, as if he knew this was the last one, as if he understood what it meant. Marcus dropped to his knees, pressed his ear to the snow. At first he heard nothing, just wind, just generators, just the pounding of his own heart. Then, faint, so faint he almost missed it, he heard something. Not a heartbeat this time, a different sound, hollow, like knocking on wood. Someone was tapping, deliberately, a signal. "He's alive!" Marcus shouted. "He's alive and conscious, everyone here now!" The team swarmed in. This time they dug with renewed energy, exhaustion forgotten. If this man was conscious, if he was signaling, they had a real chance. The snow was dense, compacted, but they dug systematically, efficiently, years of training guiding their movements. Every few minutes, Marcus would call out, "Thomas, can you hear us? We're coming. Keep tapping." And from deep below, the tapping would continue, steady, determined, the sound of a man refusing to give up. After 30 minutes of brutal work, they broke through, a hollow space, an air pocket created by fallen trees, and inside it, lying on his side, was Thomas Hayes. His face was pale, his lips were purple, his eyes were barely open, but he was alive. And when Marcus reached down to take his hand, Thomas squeezed back. "Lisa," Thomas whispered, his voice barely audible. Marcus felt his chest tighten. He knew what the man was asking, and he knew he couldn't lie. "We found her, I'm sorry." Thomas closed his eyes. A single tear tracked down his frozen cheek. But he didn't have time to grieve. Not yet. They had to get him out, get him warm, get him to a hospital. Rachel was already working, checking vitals, starting an IV, wrapping him in thermal blankets. They lifted him carefully onto the stretcher. Thomas looked up at Marcus one more time. "The boy, Ethan, did you find the medicine?" Marcus nodded. "We found it. He has it. He's going to be okay." Thomas smiled. Just a fraction, just a small lift at the corners of his mouth. "Good. That's good." Then he closed his eyes and let them carry him down the mountain. 3 days later, Marcus stood in the hospital corridor, holding a cup of lukewarm coffee. He'd come to check on the survivors, something he always did after a rescue. It helped somehow, seeing the people they'd saved, knowing their work mattered. Ethan Cole was in the pediatric ICU, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed. His mother sat beside his bed, holding his hand. She was in her early 30s, her face drawn with exhaustion and worry, but her eyes were clear. When Marcus entered, she looked up. For a moment, she just stared at him. Then tears began streaming down her face. "You saved him," she said, her voice breaking. "You and your dog. You saved my son." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. He'd never been good with gratitude. "Just doing our job, ma'am." "No." She stood up, walked over to him. "You don't understand. Ethan's cancer. It's aggressive. He was on an experimental treatment protocol. The medication you found, we'd spent months getting approval for it, finding a way to pay for it, getting it shipped from a research facility in Colorado. It's the only thing keeping him alive." Marcus looked at the boy in the bed. His skin had more color now. His breathing was steady. The monitors showed stable vitals. "David and the others, they were bringing it to us," she continued. "The hospital is 4 hours away and Ethan couldn't travel, so they volunteered to make the trip, to bring it to him. They saved his life, and then you saved theirs." Marcus felt his throat tighten. Not all of them. Her expression softened. 2 families lost people they loved, but 3 families got their people back, and my son got a chance to live, because of you. She reached out, took his hand. "I want to meet him. Your dog. I want to thank him." Marcus smiled. "I'll bring him by." Down the hall, Thomas Hayes was awake and recovering. He'd lost 2 toes to frostbite, and the doctors said he'd need physical therapy for months, but he'd live. When Marcus stopped by his room, Thomas was staring out the window, his expression distant. "I heard what you did," Thomas said without looking over. "About the medication, about finding it." Marcus nodded. "Lisa would have been proud of that. She was a doctor, spent her whole life trying to save people." His voice cracked. "We were going to get married next spring." Marcus didn't know what to say. What comfort could he offer? What words would make any difference? "That dog of yours," Thomas continued. "He knew, didn't he? He knew the medicine was there, knew it mattered." "I think so, yes." Thomas finally looked at him. His eyes were red, his face drawn. "Tell him thank you. Tell him he saved a child's life. Tell him Lisa would have wanted that more than anything." "I will," Marcus said quietly. A week later, Marcus brought Ranger to the hospital. Ethan was out of the ICU, sitting up in bed, color returning to his cheeks. When Ranger walked into the room, the boy's face lit up with pure joy. "Is that him?" Ethan asked. "Is that the dog who found me?" "That's him," Marcus said. "This is Ranger." Ranger approached the bed slowly, tail wagging. Ethan reached out with trembling hands, buried his fingers in the dog's thick fur. "Thank you," Ethan whispered. "Thank you for saving me." Ranger leaned into the touch, eyes half closed, as if he understood every word. Ethan's mother stood in the doorway, watching. Marcus glanced at her, saw tears streaming down her face, saw gratitude and grief and relief all mixed together in her expression. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan said, looking up at Marcus. "Sure. When I grow up, can I be like Ranger? Can I help save people too?" Marcus felt something shift in his chest. He thought about all the rescues he'd been on, all the lives saved and lost. He thought about the weight he carried, the nightmares that sometimes woke him, the faces he couldn't forget. But he also thought about moments like this, about the pure, simple goodness of a child who wanted to help others, about the hope that somehow, despite everything, still existed in the world. "I think you'd be great at it," Marcus said. "And when you're ready, Ranger and I will teach you everything we know." Ethan beamed. "Promise?" "Promise." Later, as Marcus and Ranger walked through the hospital parking lot, Marcus paused. He looked down at his partner, this incredible animal who'd done something extraordinary without ever understanding why it mattered. "You know what you did, don't you?" Marcus said. "You didn't just find a victim. You found hope. You found the one thing that could save him." Ranger looked up at him, ears forward, eyes bright, and Marcus could have sworn the dog understood every word. As they drove back toward the mountains, Marcus thought about the rescue, about Ranger's strange behavior, the way he'd frozen over that spot, the mournful whimper that had told Marcus something was different this time. Ranger had been trained to find human scent, but he'd also found the medication. Had he smelled the chemicals, or had he sensed on some deeper level that the case was connected to the boy, that finding one meant finding the other? Marcus didn't know. Maybe he'd never know, but he'd learned over the years to trust what he couldn't explain, to believe in the instincts that went beyond training, beyond logic, because sometimes the most important truths couldn't be measured or quantified. Sometimes you just had to have faith. Faith in your training, faith in your partner, faith that even in the darkest moments hope still existed. And Ranger had proven once again that faith was never misplaced. 6 months later, the story of Ranger and Ethan had spread beyond the mountains. Local news picked it up first, then national outlets, then international media. The image of a German shepherd standing watch over a buried child, the story of the medication that saved a life, the tragedy and triumph woven together, it became a symbol of hope in a world that desperately needed it. Marcus never sought the attention. He deflected interviews, turned down talk show invitations, and quietly returned to his work. But people wanted to know more. They wanted to understand how a dog could know things that humans couldn't, how instinct could be more reliable than technology. A documentary crew followed Marcus and Ranger for a month. The film, titled The Heartbeat, premiered at a festival in Colorado and won awards for its raw, emotional storytelling. But Marcus never watched it. He didn't need to see himself on screen to remember what had happened. He lived with it every day. The real reward came in smaller, quieter moments, like the day a woman approached him at a grocery store, tears streaming down her face. "You saved my cousin," she said. "Thomas Hayes. He's back teaching skiing. He's engaged again, thank you." Or the letter from Ethan's mother, handwritten on floral stationery. "Ethan is in remission. The doctors say the experimental therapy worked. He's going back to school in the fall. He still talks about Ranger every single day. Says he wants to be just like him when he grows up." Or the retired handler who visited the station shook Marcus's hand and said, "You reminded me why I did this work for 30 years. You and that dog. You're what it's all about." On Ethan's 9th birthday, his mother organized a small party at their home in the valley. She invited Marcus and Ranger, along with Thomas, Sarah, and a few close family members. Ethan had grown. His hair had come back, thicker than before. His cheeks had color. His eyes sparkled with energy that had been absent a year ago. He ran around the yard chasing a soccer ball, laughing with friends. When Marcus arrived with Ranger, Ethan dropped everything and sprinted across the lawn. "Ranger!" he shouted. The dog's tail began wagging before the boy even reached him. When they collided, Ethan wrapped his arms around Ranger's neck and buried his face in the thick fur. "I missed you so much," Ethan whispered. Ranger stood perfectly still, letting the boy hold him, as if understanding that sometimes this was the most important job of all. Not searching, not rescuing, just being there, just offering comfort and love. Later, after the cake and presents, Ethan pulled Marcus aside. "I've been training," he said seriously, "running every day, learning first aid, reading books about rescue dogs." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Yeah? Yeah, because I meant what I said. I want to do what Ranger does. I want to save people." Marcus looked at this boy, this brave, determined kid who'd been pulled from the edge of death and decided to spend his life pulling others back from that same edge. "Then you're going to need to learn patience," Marcus said, "and discipline, and how to read the mountains, the weather, the snow. It's not easy work, Ethan. It's going to test you in ways you can't imagine." "I know," Ethan said, "but Ranger didn't give up on me, so I won't give up either." Marcus felt his throat tighten. He placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Tell you what, when you turn 16, if you still want this, you come find me. We'll start training. You, me, and Ranger." Ethan's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? But you have to promise me something. You finish school. You take care of your body. You live your life. Because that's what Ranger saved you for. Not just so you could join search and rescue, but so you could live. Understand?" Ethan nodded seriously. "I understand." "Good," Marcus smiled. "Then I'll see you in 7 years." As Marcus and Ranger prepared to leave, Ethan's mother walked them to the car. She handed Marcus an envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "Just open it later," she said, "when you're alone." That night, sitting on his cabin porch with Ranger at his feet, Marcus opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph. Ethan in the hospital bed, Ranger beside him, both of them smiling. And beneath it, a note in Ethan's careful handwriting. "Dear Marcus and Ranger, thank you for giving me my life back. I promise I won't waste it. Love, Ethan." Marcus stared at the photo for a long time. Then he pinned it to the wall beside his other rescue photos, a growing collection of faces, of lives saved, of moments that mattered. Ranger padded over, leaned against Marcus's leg. Marcus scratched behind the dog's ears, felt the familiar warmth, the steady presence that had been his constant companion for 9 years now. "You did good, boy," Marcus whispered. "You did so damn good." And somewhere in the mountains, the wind whispered through the pines, carrying stories of courage and hope and the unbreakable bond between a man and his dog. In the end, heroism isn't measured in medals or headlines. It's measured in heartbeats, in the lives touched, in the futures made possible by refusing to give up when everything seems impossible. Ranger didn't know he was a hero. He just knew he had a job to do, and he did it with everything he had, every ounce of strength, every moment of focus, every beat of his loyal heart. He taught us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the refusal to let fear stop you from doing what needs to be done. He taught us that hope can be found in the darkest places, buried beneath tons of snow, waiting to be uncovered by someone who believes it's worth searching for. And he taught us that the most powerful force in the world isn't strength or intelligence or technology. It's instinct. It's loyalty. It's love. The kind of love that says, "I will not leave you. I will not give up. I will find you, no matter how deep you're buried, no matter how faint your heartbeat." And in a world that often feels cold and indifferent, that kind of love, that kind of devotion is the truest miracle of all. So here's to the dogs who search in the darkness, to the handlers who trust them without question, to the lives saved and the hearts mended and the hope that refuses to die. And here's to Ranger, a hero who never wore a cape, never sought recognition, never asked for anything in return except the chance to do his job one more time. He stood his ground when others would have moved on. He listened for the heartbeat when others heard only silence. He refused to leave until every life was accounted for, every hope was uncovered. And in doing so, he reminded us all what it means to be truly, profoundly human. Because sometimes it takes a dog to show us our own humanity, to teach us about loyalty, sacrifice, and unconditional love. To remind us that every life matters, every heartbeat is precious, and giving up should never be an option. That's Ranger's legacy. Not just the lives he saved, but the lives he changed, the people he inspired, the hope he restored in those who'd forgotten what hope looked like. And that legacy will endure. Long after the snow melts and the mountains change and the seasons turn, it will live on in the hearts of everyone he touched, everyone he saved, everyone who heard his story and decided to be a little braver, a little more loyal, a little more like him. Because in the end, we're all searching for something, purpose, meaning, connection. And sometimes we find it in the most unexpected places, in the silence after an avalanche, in a faint heartbeat beneath the snow, in the unwavering eyes of a dog who refuses to leave until his job is done. That's where hope lives. That's where heroes are made, not in grand gestures or dramatic moments, but in quiet determination, in patient searching, in never giving up. And if we're lucky, if we're very, very lucky, we'll find someone like Ranger to show us the way. Someone to remind us that even in our darkest moments, even when we're buried and alone and running out of time, someone is searching for us. Someone refuses to give up. Someone believes we're worth saving. And sometimes, that someone walks on four paws and has a heart bigger than the mountains themselves.